for years was 5A, and they were semifinalists in 5A and then dropped down to 4A last year, and they won.
We're looking at them there on the screen. 29-26, they beat Montgomery to move on, and Cherokee County and Oneonta played out, and I was at that game. Cherokee County, this game here we're looking at, November 25th, they just completely controlled the line of scrimmage in that game. That's how that was the winner of that game. They did.
Oh, yeah.
Offensively and defensively.
Yeah, we were there at that game, Matt. I mean, you were there at the same time. But another score, you had Andalusia beating Montgomery Catholic in the semis 29-26. But the week before in the quarterfinals at Anniston, they're down 28-7. They were down 28-7 and come back and win on a kick punt return after Anniston went for it on fourth down like 3 times inside their own 25-yard line. And that got that game going for them. And Hanley and Montgomery Catholic was 21-14. So it was a gauntlet for those teams in the 4A just to get to the finals.
Oh, yeah. Hanley was great. They might have been better than – they could have possibly been one of the best top 5 teams in the state, but not in the top 5 in their classification.
You had Hanley, you had Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Hanley, Jacksonville, Anniston, all 3 could have been in the finals if they'd have been north. But again, that don't matter. But again,
I just circled here. This box right here, all this stuff here. Look at all these teams: Montgomery Catholic, Hanley, and Jacksonville, T.R. Miller. All those teams are great.
Yeah, and of all them teams there, they've all. I'm not sure about Catholic, but the other ones have been in the finals or have won state finals. They've either won it or been there before.
Yeah, of course you got
Catholic. Same thing. Oneonta up here. That game, I'm not circling. Oneonta and Dessler. That one right there. You go down. That's the game that surprised me. The Oneonta Dessler. Not that Oneonta beat them, but the score. That's
70 to 30, isn't it?
62-21. I couldn't believe that score.
I couldn't either.
If I'd have bet, I'd have lost that one.
Kevin, how are Asheville and Etowah and all that bunch be?
Well, like I said, Etowah, they've lost some, and they've had. And I'll just have to be careful. I say this: they've got some that are on that were on the roster last year, but they're not this year. But it wasn't because they graduated. I'll just put it that way. And like I said, like you brought up earlier about Oneonta, why would you leave Oneonta for another school?
It's just a popular thing now. Kids just they see it in college, so they move around.
Yeah, Asheville. We've got a new head coach. His name, and if I can pronounce it right, Kerry Akas Shepard. He was a defensive coordinator for Pell City last year. Now, I think they've only got about 30 kids out so far, and 30 kids for a 4A school is not that good. In fact, probably a 3A, that's a low number. So, and it's just, but I was on part of the coaching search committee, and he interviewed well, was very impressed with some of the things he wanted to do. He said he just was very detailed in everything he did. He has a goal of having 17 to 18 players per class. So he'd like to have about 60 to 65 players on the squad once it's said and done. So no matter who, if Nick Saban came in and coached this team this year, would be lucky to win 2 games. So, I'm not expecting. I'm hoping for the best, but I expect the worst. I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I've got full confidence in Coach Shepard, but it's just that he's got a lot to rebuild on this year.
Right. And Kevin, before I forget, this is not football, but when I ask you why would a certain guy left Hanley when he was good as a baseball coach? Remember?
Yeah,
he got the head job at Opelika.
Yeah,
so that's why he left. So that's why that job came open.
Well,
I got you.
Matt was telling me Randolph had their do it everything.
Yeah, I got this highlighted on here. Let me tell you,
they'll be good.
Well, remember we did a preview on them.
Yeah.
Before these big games got here, when they were like the only team left, Cherokee County was. So we would just do it in depth on the team they're playing. And I got here digging off for a few hours. This kid, I don't remember his last name. It's kind of a off kind of last name, but it was like easy to remember. But anyway,
it's different. What is it? Do you know what Coach Shortt?
What did he throw for? Was like 5,000 yards.
He had 5,000 yards of total offense, or 4,800, or something like that.
So be aware that this Randolph school, and when you Google the school and go look at it on your Google Maps, wow! I'm just gonna say, wow! It's up there around Huntsville. They have a great program, and they played the center a good game because Cherokee County went. It was up there. They had to go to Randolph.
They did it. Priceful is good. Will be good too. But I will say this, and I can say this because, like I said, Matt said this is his show, and we're in this county.
Your name's on the show. Say what you want to.
I think Center has a great chance to go back.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think any other coach from a 4A North would say, if you ask them, would Cherokee County have a legit shot to make it back to a semi game? They'd go, yeah, probably so.
Definitely.
Boy, they lost a quarterback and their center.
Right, that's it.
I mean, they lost Jack. Now, Jack was the Wildcat, Kid Lightning, and his energy, interceptions. He made a big interception right after halftime. Was against Etowah game.
That was Aniana. Running back all the way, didn't it?
A pick six against Aniana.
Yeah, totally changed
the whole game.
I thought they called it back.
They did.
But it still changed. It was very exciting.
Yeah, it just changed the game.
Yeah, they brought it back, but I think they scored the next play.
They did score the next.
Because it wasn't about a 16 yard. Yes, to him. Yes.
Yes.
The thing that when you mentioned Randolph, Randolph will have to get to the point where they can physically play the game that Center wants to play. A lot of times when you're playing teams that want to keep the ball away from you and are not looking at getting 80 snaps a game, they may not give you the ball. A 2-touchdown lead for some teams. Put it this way. If Fife gets 2 touchdowns on you, that's almost like having a 28-point lead.
Yes.
Because you're not going to get enough snaps. You're not going to get enough possessions.
You're right.
So it's the same way when you play center, especially in the North. You've got to be able to score with them because they're going to score some points. It's just when you look up, you think, well, the first quarter's about over, and they've had the ball for, 10 and 14 play drives. When they're playing people and they're scoring real quickly, that's teams that ain't real good. But when they're playing good teams like last year against Etowah, they just kept the ball away from Etowah last year. Matt, you were there. Yeah, we'd turn around and Etowah would get it, throw a touchdown pass. Okay, 3-play drive, touchdown. Yeah. But then Center would get it back and keep the ball for 12 and 14 plays, and next thing you know, it's halftime.
Yeah, I'm looking up this boy's name for this Randolph. Was it Driscoll? Randolph football. Alabama. He's special. Matt was talking about him.
I did some digging on him.
It's ridiculous.
5A, I'm going to let y'all talk a little more. I don't it's not a big homage around here, but we don't know about Faith Academy, Charles Henderson, the game that they played, and that Pleasant Grove and Ramsey game come down to the wire. So, do we look for these guys to come back and make another run at it?
Let me give you a couple of these 5A games because I got to see Gulf Shores play Central Clay. Gulf Shores is where Ronnie Royale is at, the guy that used to be at Alexandria, the running back that
transferred. A senior.
He is this year. He's a prospect. He's in the top 50 prospects in the state. See, they got beat. They got beat by Faith. But here's some of the things. Faith Academy was against Charles Henderson, and that was probably the surprise team in 5A this year. Is Charles Henderson coming out of the South? What was a surprise game, and here's why. In the third round, Charles Henderson beat UMS Wright 19-16. In the third round and scored on the last play of the game to beat UMS Wright. Well, let's drop down here and look at Pleasant Grove and Ramsey. Pleasant Grove got beat by Ramsey 27-20 in the semis. But Pleasant Grove in the third round beat Arab, the Arabian Knights, 41-38. That was in the third round.
Well, Arab had a good team.
Yes, they did. But, Arab, there was a lot of difference in the Arab. Yes, you're exactly right. And Ramsey also beat Leeds 27-19 in the third round. So that group in the North, I know Ramsey ended up winning at 41-20, but it probably just proved this year in the North with Ramsey, Pleasant Grove. Ramsey and Pleasant Grove, either one could go back again because Pleasant Grove's been there how many times in the finals, like 3 years in a row, and couldn't get it. And they didn't make it this time. Yeah, they didn't make it this time.
Is that where Sam Shade coached? No, he coached at Pinson, right?
He's at Pinson. And then, like I said, you got Leeds, you've got Ramsey. There's a bunch of teams right there out of the North that could make it. Faith Academy is one of those you never know what they're going to have. Those kids are constantly moving because there's a kid from, I'll just say this, there's a kid from Orange Beach that left Orange Beach and has gone back to Spanish Fort. If you know anything about 6A football, Spanish Forts have won a lot of state championships.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, they've always been good. So there's so much movement down there in Mobile and Baldwin County of kids. You never know where they're all going to go. So probably from top to bottom last year, and to keep an eye on it, 5A was probably your best classification as far as the deepest of great teams. I mean, every week was a close game.
Let me tell you what I heard on a Twitter space. I go in there in spaces and guys talk. They're from all over the state and sometimes, different states. But he played at Leeds and he's graduated, I don't know, like 20, I think he said like 2012 or something. But anyway, young guy, played at Leeds. So he keeps up with the football there and he goes to the games and he knows coaches and whatnot. He says, now it is his home team there. He says that Leeds is going to be great this year.
Well, they got most of the people back from last year, so they got a good opportunity. But again,
Alexandria will probably be pretty good too. So
if they find a running back,
so they've lost both of them now.
Yeah, this year's last one. They're still going to be always going to be Alexandria. They're going to get after you. They'll be a good football team this year. They always play Leeds well. Guys, it wasn't long ago. Leeds was 3A.
Yes.
I know.
Yeah. Tell me this right here. This UMS Wright team, you see how close they played Charles Henderson. Charles Henderson, of course, went on and, got to play for it. Didn't play a great game against Ramsey, but Ramsey was great. So this UMS Wright team, they always was kind of thorn in the side of Cherokee County. Remember back in the day,
oh, yeah, definitely.
So is this UMS Wright team is going to be as advertised like they always are, you think?
Yes. I mean, when Coach Curtis, excuse me, I said, I go way back with Coach Curtis because he's a thorn in my side too. They beat us in 2001.
He won about 10, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean he got his he moved he got to UMS Wright in 99, and I took the head job in 98. So yeah, in 2 years he was back, and that's my first as a head coach state championship try. And he's a thorn in my side. Him and Jamie Riggs at T.R. Miller. But UMS Wright, you always got to give them a chance because they're going to be so smart. They're going to always be well coached, and they're going to have some of the best. I mean, we talk about they always have great white athletes, and they always got a couple of good black kids that have moved in the skill positions. So they'll always have a chance. Terry's always going to have them ready. And the thing about it is, people always wonder, well, then they moved them up. They moved them up to 5A from 4A. Well, instead of scholarshiping 10 guys, now we'll scholarship 16 guys. So that's how they make it up. That's how they make the difference. They just scholarship more players.
Can Central Clay win 5A?
In the South?
Can they win the whole thing?
They were a lot better last year because they were real young last year. They got even though they lost their running back, but they got some good ones coming back. I watched them in the spring over at Haralson County. It's going to be difficult. They're going to be a great team. They got a great coach, but it's going to be difficult for them to win the state championship coming out of the South. Every time they won it, the 2 years they won it back to back, they came out of the North. And
right.
By coming out of the North, you may not have to beat yourself up as bad to get there. People say, well, they won it. They beat somebody from the South. That's right. But those teams in the South are beating each other to death just to get there.
Right, just to get there.
Yeah.
They only got to play the South 1 week.
1 week, and anything goes in 1 week. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah, they're going to have a chance. They're going to get deeper and deeper. If they're going to win it, I think that this is probably what's going to happen. They'll move back to the North, and next year, not this coming classification, but the next year, they'll have a very good chance of winning it because they're fixing to be real, real good at Central.
Let me ask you about Hartsville. I'm curious about them this year. We're talking about 5A podcast listeners. Again, we got Coach Michael Shortt and Kevin Moore. We've talked to Coach Willingham. He's been on with us, and also Coach Hammond from Valley Head. So again, we thank y'all for stopping by. If y'all are still hanging out on the show, we're about going to wrap it up here. I know everybody's it's going to be a late night, but that's okay. We thank y'all for stopping by. But Hartsville guys, Kevin, Coach Shortt, I'm curious about them. They played a good game with Mount Brook, and Mount Brook moves that offense like we was talking about the other day, Coach. They just move guys. The whole line shifts down. The guard will be the center. I mean, so how they play ball. So how is this Hartsville team? Do they fit back into this equation again? Oh,
Hartsville in
6A.
Yeah. you've jumped to 6A because that they played Mountain Brook. They actually played Mountain Brook better than Muscle Shoals did.
Yeah.
And that's all about matchups as far as Hartselle playing Mountain Brook. Mountain Brook is a team in Coach. Yeah, well, Kevin should know about that coach. He remembers him.
Oh yeah, I'm a big Chris Yeager fan.
Yeah, West Blockton back in the day when the
that was probably the best high school football game I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, but they're going to do things to make you have to be very cerebral. You got all the shifting and things that they do. And Mountain Brook can beat a lot of schools that got more talent than they do because they're going to out-coach them.
Yeah.
And just because of what they do scheme-wise on offense, it makes it difficult for some schools to up and beat them. Here's the thing I want to mention to you is 6A South, Saraland.
Yeah.
Go
best
look
player in the
at
state.
not only the best player, they've got they got a quarterback. And now we're not talking about the kid in Thompson, the little 8th grader is going to be a 9th grader. I'm talking about 6A football. The quarterback's committed to Texas. The wide receiver's committed to Alabama. Now the defensive lineman is fighting in between, and he's a junior. He's a Texas-Alabama lean. One of those two is where he's going to go. That's just their top 3.
Is it Ryan Williams? Is that his name?
Yeah, that's the Alabama commit the receiver.
Is he the number 1 ranked player in the state?
No, it depends on which site you're looking at. But yeah, he's a top 5 guy. Yeah,
okay.
At his position receiver, yes, he is.
Okay.
And then you got the quarterback that's already committed to Texas.
Wow.
And that's Saraland. If Saraland doesn't get back in the finals, they might ought to be an investigation. So,
they're that good. What about Clay Chalkville?
Well, but before I even go to them, think of this. Last year in the 6A quarterfinals, Homewood versus Saraland, 57-56 Saraland over Homewood in overtime, 57-56. That's how close Saraland was to not getting there. And here's another one. Saraland was that team that they were actually fixing to not even get into playoffs because of an ineligible player, if you remember there.
I remember that.
That almost happened. So everything fell into place for Saraland to win it, but they've got everybody back. The superintendent of schools used to coach with Coach Probst down at Eufaula, and they've got a great school system. It's going to be very tough for somebody to knock off Saraland. Now, you go to the north, man, you've got Mountain Brook, you've got Clay Chalkville. I tell you, another team that's going to be a sleeper this year. Even though they've lost some, they've gained some. Oxford's getting close to being back in the mix. You know, they'll have a say so. So,
I'm curious about Hartselle, how's this team pan out here? 'Cause I paid attention to them last year. I don't know. I'll get latched on to some teams this game here was I don't think the score represents the game because I followed that game closely, this Mountain Brook Hartselle game. 49-30, Mountain Brook took that game, but it was closer, I think, for most of the game.
Well, yeah, Mountain Brook actually scored late to make that last touchdown.
Yes. So,
Hartselle's always been a program, a very proud program that's been there in the finals before. You know, they've had places. I mean, they've had some Hall of Fame coaches come through there before too. So Hartselle, you can't ever fall on them. I mean, them, Decatur, all them places up there. I mean, they've got good players. Here's those type of teams: Hartselle, Mountain Brook, people like that. They're also very good in another sport that people don't look at. I always look and see. They're going to say, are they good in baseball? Yeah, that's what I look at, because those baseball players is a lot of times your DBs, your wide receivers, and your pitchers. And those pitchers are quarterbacks. I mean, I love my quarterback to be a pitcher. I mean, I just always have. Hoover used to have some of their better quarterbacks were also great pitchers. And Hartselle's always been that way. So I translate those baseball guys over to football. And it's interesting. They'll always have a chance. But again,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask you and Kevin how the Gadsden area.
Yeah,
6-18.
That's just what I was fixing to do. Yeah.
Kansas City, South Side, that bunch.
Well, that's the group. It's what's scary is why is Gaston City and Oxford not playing a regular season game? Maybe they will eventually. I hope they get back to playing, or maybe they'll force them all in the same region. They play each other again. I watched Gaston City in a 7-on-7 the other day. Them and Oxford got after each other pretty good. Gaston City's got a lot of linemen. Gaston City probably will never go back to 7A. I think they'll stay in 6, and that's where they need to be.
Yeah,
I think if they stay in 6A, they've got a good chance of being a playoff contending team. Look at Gaston City's schedule. Some of the people that they play, not some of the region games, but some of the teams that they play non-region. When they picked up Carrollton, if you want to see the best quarterback in the country, watch Carrollton play.
Well, he took a lot of heat for that loss last year, but
nobody else around here could have played them.
Well, I mean, that's one of the best teams in the South.
Yeah, and with one of the better quarterbacks in the South. But
and now I'm sure that the people are like, there were people calling for him to be fired after that.
Yeah, I know. But that's just they don't know what you're talking about. But again, but Gaston City is in a great region for them. Fort Payne, Hazel Green, Buckhorn, Leah, Huntsville, May Jemison. It's going to be interesting. I think they can get into the playoffs, but right now they're probably a second round type team. But I think if they can stay healthy, they can eventually. They're going to have to change classifications again, not classification, but maybe they always get paired up with the Birmingham group first. And that's hard to do. You got to go in there with the Mountain Brooks and Hewitt Trust, Clay Chalkwell, and those people. That's hard for them to do.
Their schedule here, September 1st, Gaston City. They got Hewitt Trustful, Fort Payne at home. They're going to travel to Buckhorn and Hartsville away, Hillcrest away. They'll host Hazel Green. Then they'll have May Jemison at home. Then they'll go to Lee Huntsville and then home against Calera. Looks like the end regular season.
They can have a pretty good season.
I was told that they were playing Carver Montgomery to replace that Carrollton team last year. I'm not sure.
That's what it shows here on Max Press.
Okay.
Yep.
I just wouldn't fool with Carrollton no more.
No.
There's no shame in losing that game.
But here's the reason that game happened. I was told this by somebody that's really close with Gaston City and what they got going on. That somebody else fell out and he had no other game to play, and they just wound up with that game. And it's just like it just was a had to. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
His hand was kind of forced because of what happened. So, and we just found out,
Well, I will say this. Carrollton probably could have pulled the dogs off just a tad.
Not early in the season, though. Yeah, not early in the season. It's not going to happen.
Well, that's true. I know. But
yeah.
70-7.
Yeah, and the thing about also remember this, in Georgia, the way they do their tiebreakers, it's about points scored.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna score every point I can because I'm gonna need that as a tiebreaker eventually.
So there really ain't no pulling your starters in Georgia, right?
Well, see, you got to be careful about that. You either pull them or you don't. Or I keep them in there and score a bunch of points, and all of a sudden somebody gets hurt. So you have to really, you have to be careful there how you go about that. But
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
No, and the reason they lost the Carrollton game was because everybody on the line, they changed their starting dates. So that's why everybody lost the Georgia teams. Cleveland County, Carrollton.
Thompson lost to
Cherokee
Buford.
County. Yeah, the Buford game.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, they don't nobody around here want to play Rockmart this year. I think they may win 2A.
Yep.
Y'all know the number one quarterback in the country, the guy's going to Georgia from Texas. Supposedly he's going to Buford. He's going to play at Buford this year.
He's already there.
He left the state championship team to go play for another one.
Oh, that's nice.
This Carver Montgomery team's got Daphne, Park Cross, and Russell County. I'm just looking at them, Lee, Cedar Grove, Douglas. Those are some big schools there. But that's some Gaston City. Looking over here at the 7A, I know it kind of goes kind of quick because
same old.
It's always the same teams, right?
Is there any chance we'll put them up here? Is there
Lakers, Celtics?
Yeah, it is. Is there any chance Hoover gets in this? Kevin
gets in it or wins it?
Yeah, are they going to win it? Does Hoover have a shot to get in there and beat Tom? I just
Oh, they can beat them early in the year, but they can't beat them. They won't beat them at the end.
Well, I got a question. I'm not trying to top Matt's question or anybody's. Is there any chance that somebody besides these four does not get in the semis?
No. It'd be them.
No chance.
Bob Jones, best. Hey, look, now I ain't going to.
I watched Bob Jones play. I watched him the other day in 7-on-7.
I'm not going to call it, but I'll tell you this. The Vestavia Hoover game, I was at that game.
Yeah, you said Vestavia was pretty good.
Dude,
right?
They have got some guys. They got some corners and some D-backs, safety guys that can play the play. They're going to be good this year.
They got a DB. It's one of the top guys, and they got a DB. It's one of the top ones in the country.
That's the one I seen. I didn't know, but you can tell. Look, I mean, I'm not trying to say I'm a football guru. I don't know none of them kids, but when I watch them play, I'm like, that guy right there is really good. And Bo's like, yeah, he's going to, he's got prospects like, well, golly, man.
He does. He's one of the top 5 DBs in the country.
So there's no chance of it not being Auburn, Thompson, Central Phoenix, and Hoover.
The only team that 7A South. There's not as many of them because people do, there's not as many 7A teams in the South, so they don't have but 4 rounds in the playoffs.
Right.
But Central Phoenix City, in Auburn last year, they swapped it out.
Yeah.
But the Enterprise, keep an eye on Enterprise. Their coaching staff that was at Spanish for a while has came back. They were there last year. They're going to be better this year. And I've talked to them. Can you get good enough to beat Auburn and Central Phoenix City? His thing is this: at Enterprise, they'll work their butts off. They'll be extremely well coached, but they may not have as many as they say. They may not have as many dudes as Auburn and Central Phoenix City is going to have, because Auburn and Central Phoenix City are always having people move in, and they're not third team players. They're guys that can make a difference. So they've got to. I don't see it in. I don't see it in the near future of anybody else besides Auburn and Central Phoenix City and Hoover and Thompson. And Hoover's just hanging on. Hoover is just hanging on.
But they're still in that top 4 every year.
Yeah, they're still going to be in the top 4. But for for Hoover, that's not acceptable. If they're not in the finals and winning it, it's not acceptable. It don't matter. So that's
who's playing there, Jeff? Jeff said the coach come to Carrollton on the 18th. 8 and 18. They must be having like a preseason week.
No, they start a week earlier, so they play all the way to Christmas.
I wonder who they're going to play.
Yeah, they play. They play in January. They play longer than the NFL playoffs.
Well, they can. They have 2 jamborees. They can play 2, so they can play 2 of those. So that'd be interesting to see. I've been asked to go over there and watch that quarterback, and that's what I'd like to see. But you know what? If you got a great quarterback, he's not great if you ain't got anybody that can catch it or somebody to block for him.
Juju Lewis, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now Thompson, guys, this year, last year's everybody early in the season, they've lost 2. They've lost 2. Yeah, but look who they lost to.
They did lose to, like modern day.
Buford, and then they lost to the team out of Tennessee. The guy.
Lipscomb.
Yes, Lipscomb.
Well, yeah, they're one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, well, that's who they lost to, and people didn't understand that. And they had some young players. Everybody said, they had a young quarterback. Not then, they didn't. He didn't start playing until late in the season. The young kid, the kid that's the 8th grader, that'll be a 9th grader this year. I think he's got one more year till he gets the driver's license. So he'll still be, at least this year, he'll be able to come out of middle school and come and practice with him.
So he could actually go get his driver's license with a state championship ring on.
Yes.
Well, he will.
The kid at Thompson's mom has to bring him practice last year.
Yeah, and he's a star.
Yeah, he's been with Nick Saban. He's been to Tuscaloosa.
You know why?
Is it overhyped or is it for real?
No, because his kinfolks are Tua.
Dude,
his kids are Tua and them.
The Thompson kid, go watch him play. Just go turn on some film and go watch the Auburn game. And they put him in. I'm like, how? Because he didn't start the season. Remember, he didn't come in till mid-season.
An injury is when he got to come in about game 6 or 7. Yes,
state championship game, dude. He's dropping dimes. He looks like a senior out there against Auburn. Now that's probably going to be. Everybody's probably going to pick. I assume, am I right? Most people are going to probably pick. They're going to pick Thompson to repeat. Would y'all assume that also?
Yeah,
I'd say so.
I'll say that. I'll go ahead and throw this out there. Repeat, and then we'll see if the coach stays there. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Where's Nick's at now?
Central Phoenix City.
He's still at Central Phoenix.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
He's still there. Yeah. He'll be there.
I thought he was. I just didn't know for.
Let's see what the screen said. Carrollton plays. Air Nolan.
Okay.
What?
Who? Aaron Nolan. Oh, that's probably some school that can beat you 179 to nothing.
One of them schools out of New Jersey or something.
Carrollton's special. But, that shows you how good football is in the state of Georgia. They make the state championship game and get beat 70-37.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But that team that beat them is also going to have a kid start for Alabama as a freshman.
Sam Shade is
Caleb Downs
at Miles College.
Oh, I didn't know that Sam Shade was gone.
Yeah, he left last year. Yes.
Mason says Gadsden City will be lucky to be 4A in 5 years. Mason feels like Gadsden City may be having a decline. Is it because of the success from maybe the private schools in the area, or with Coach Glover?
No, just lack of people and people not moving in. And when people are not moving in, then you don't have families that are having kids that actually will keep it up. They can't get that many kids away from.
I don't think nobody wants them in 4A. I wouldn't think.
Gadsden City.
I wouldn't want to see them in 4A.
I can't see them losing that many. That is a very large amount of kids to lose to drop from 6 to 4. That is a lot of people moving. I know they got some new businesses coming in. Kevin may know about that, but there's not that many. I think where they're going to stay is 6A, and that's where they probably need to stay.
Lord, I hope they don't put Gadsden City in 4A because they'll put them in there with Ashland. That'll be another one we'd have to lose too.
I'll just be honest with you, and I'm not knocking the 4A teams, but I think Gadsden City would probably win 4A.
Yeah.
Which Etowah's not won it. I thought they would.
I think they could beat Anniston, Hanley,
Yes.
Jacksonville.
Gadsden City? Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Everybody's got their own. That's what
Everybody's got their own opinion.
We don't agree with you, Dane.
Well, now Kevin ain't saying nothing.
Back in the day, Gadsden and Anniston used to have a lot of good classic games. Back when of course, they were all 5A at the time. So,
Right.
Well, Anniston's got the most. Everybody, coaches know they got probably the most talented roster, one of in the state. You just got to be able to get them all together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I will say this for high school football this year, and we're talking about recruiting, maybe not teams, but you're going to be able to see some of the best football players that we've seen in a long time playing football in Alabama this year, the state of Alabama. And the reason I say that is go and look at Alabama and Auburn's recruiting classes. They're loaded with kids from Alabama this year.
And they're usually not.
And they're usually not because they're not some of the best players in the country. And that's how, especially Alabama, that's how they recruit. They're going to recruit them guys. People say, oh, this kid can play at Alabama. No, he can't. They don't have it so many that
And
they
it's
can
not
put
an
on
insult.
No, it's not. No.
It's not an insult. You can't play at Alabama. I dare you. Come on.
Or anywhere. It's just very difficult to less than half of 1% of the kids in the country play college sports. So
and
very few kids get to play college sports.
I hate to be the burden of bad news, and me and Coach Shortt talked about this maybe the day before yesterday or so. And I ain't gonna get on this horse and ride it out. And Coach Shortt, we don't have to get on this topic because it aggravates, I think, both of us. Tennessee has already passed NIL stuff, and Georgia's voting on it. Florida's fixing to pass it. So that Alabama high school football is what I'm saying is fixing to change. And if they don't get on board and this don't go through, because NIL is not for everybody, and not every kid's going to get an NIL deal. No. But what's going to happen? Some of these big stars, like we were talking about Ronnie Roy a while ago, or the quarterback at Thompson, or Junkins that left, from Pike Road, they don't stay here and play in the state. They wind up taking a nice little leisurely drive down to a place like IMG or something like that, where those guys can make a little extra. So.
Hear this. Let's take, you just mentioned Ronnie Royale at Gulf Shores.
Yeah.
It's not very far from Gulf Shores to go across the state line into Florida.
Nope.
If Florida passes the high school NIL, not college, but high school NIL, and Alabama won't do it. If they won't do it, then there'll be some business just across the state line that says, hey, bring your kid over here. We'll give him $400, $500 a month just to walk down here and sit in one of my cars on the car lot and smile.
Yeah. And they'll just they'll pay your house rent. Say if you get a house that's rents $1,000 a month, like, because some of those kids, I ain't going to say where, cause it don't matter, but there's kids that are living down there and they're sharing apartments, right? And they're getting paid for by people.
I don't know.
I didn't say where.
It happens. It happens.
I didn't say where. I could be talking about Louisiana. We just talked about Florida, but I'm just saying, guys, that's what's going on. There's stuff out there.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And I'm afraid that teams like Ernie Willingham, he's not just a good coach. He's a good guy. And those small schools are Coach Knapp, Coach Crane, and from what Coach Howard did over at 1A Spring Garden, those kind of things, those things that we love about high school football, guys, those kind of things, I'm afraid that those type of things could go away because you're just going to pile up kids in one box. And then they just going to go play in their own sandbox, and their sandbox is the biggest, nicest sandbox there is. And you have good human beings like the people I just mentioned that are good to make, not just to make good football players, but make good young boys into good young men and make them men. And
It's going to happen, Matt.
I wasn't going to get on my soapbox, and I did. I'm sorry, but
that's fine. And let me
let me ask y'all before we get off here. Do y'all agree with players being able to go and play wherever they want to?
Well, it ain't that.
Well,
it's just
what's going to happen.
Well, I'm just talking about transferring.
What's going to happen? Tennessee's already passed it. Okay.
Right. It'll get worse.
Going to vote on it. And if Georgia's going to vote on it, that means, it's going to happen. So once Georgia does it and Tennessee does it, and we start losing some players like Thompson and Hoover and them start losing players to another state because of this happened, then Alabama will change it. So once Alabama changes and says it's legal to have, NIL in high school, pay a kid $100 to come over here and work for me, then what will happen is the state we will have open enrollment in the whole state. I think we're 5 years away from it.
I wouldn't do it. I mean, who would be in charge of blocking that?
Your state legislators was
okay. I wouldn't do it. I would say no, that ain't coming here. Get out of here. I'm serious.
Yeah, but if Tennessee does it, which they already have, when Georgia does it, that means Florida's going to do it. Well, the state will be surrounded, and we'll start losing our best players.
Right, I understand that.
If you don't go along with it, then there just won't be there won't be high.
We'll have football. You'll just lose a lot of good players.
A lot of good players.
Yeah, and those guys I've just mentioned, like Royal or the kid at Thompson or the quarterback out of Jacksonville or Fluff, or people around here local.
But Tennessee did it because they have to. Tennessee football's not great.
The state is in high school.
No.
Yeah.
Todd, I know a college football coach that was recruiting a quarterback in Nashville. And when and I won't even say the coach, I'm not going to get into that, but he's recruiting, and the kid said, well, what can you pay me to come to your college? He said, well, we're not really in the NIL type thing yet. We don't do it a lot. Eric Clemson. Oh, excuse me. So the kid said, thanks, but no thanks. All right. 2 weeks later, the kid calls this coach back and says, hey, what do I need to do to maybe come to y'all's place? And he said, well, we can talk about it. He said, well, this is what you need to do for me. Now, this is the college kid. A high school kid in 11th grade says, this is what you need to do for me. I'm here in Tennessee, and I got 2 schools here that I'd like to go to. And can you help me get to their schools? Because they're going to pay me about $300,000 to come play football for them. Does that sink into your head?
Oh,
high school football? But you know what? College is changing. It's changed. We might as well get ready. We're going to see high school football change. And if it changes, we can't do nothing about it. We just have to just keep loving it and kind of accept what's going to happen because we can't change it. There's a new day out there.
How did this even happen?
A video game. Honestly, this is where it started. It started